Hey, hello, Hadokelings. My name's Alan Lear, and I'm sort of an improv comedian and generally just a friend of Toby's. And he's asked me to come along and have a word with you about one of my favourite episodes of Doctor Who for this new podcast that he's doing. Well, I didn't have to think twice about my choice. One of my absolute favourites is The Curse of Fenric.
Well, it's raining outside. I mean, it really is. It's pounding it. There's been a lot of rain in Manchester as I record this July 2023. And I know it is raining in the land of Doctor Who in 1989, which I remember when 1989 was new. And hello to all those listeners who weren't even born when this was on. It's lovely that you're listening, and also terrifying that you're able to. I had met Sylvester McCoy not long before this, and I remember asking him, is Dinsdale Landon the main guest star? Because Dinsdale Landon seemed like a very important actor, and it was important to me that important actors, because sometimes important actors, with Remembrance of the Daleks, Peter Halliday, Michael Sheard, they weren't playing massive parts, and so it was just suddenly became very important to me that, illustrious actors were being at least accorded with main guest star status, and, of course, Sylvester was like, well, yeah, I suppose so, but it didn't enter his head that, I haven't really thought of, who's top guest billing or whatever, because not everybody thinks of those things. But I do, and that was there even then, all those years ago. 89. I mean, it's extraordinary to think that this is 34 years old. So this is now older by quite some margin than An Unearthly Child was when this was on, and I find that a terrifying thing to contemplate, because I was quite compos mentis when this was on. I was capable of doing things, and I'm taking my first steps into adulthood. Well, how old was I? I was born in 1974, so I was only 15. I felt terribly grown up. And certainly I have very vivid memories of this period. And, of course, most of my vivid memories... In fact, I found an old diary not long ago, and quite a few of my diary entries are what I thought of Doctor Who at this time. Ha, ha, ha. Never mind world events. I've put a few world events in there as well. Anyway, look, I've got to fit in an interview with Andrew Cartmel tomorrow, so that the end of this podcast has some added interest. So, not too much preamble. I'm sure you're absolutely fine with that. Let us crack on by pressing play on episode 3 of The Curse of Fenric in 3, 2, 1. And listen to that rain, my goodness. And here it pops in right now. Oh, it's being slow. Of course, because it's the 21st century, and we have an internet superhighway, a repository of all the worldwide information that zooms along at record-breaking speed without the need for wires. It's really slow and glitchy if it bloody rains. Ha ha ha! Oh, you see, it's not. My internet hub is not the ultimate machine. So I don't know what's happening here. I might have to pause and do this again, but I might keep all those words in, because do we like that though? Is now feedback, because I actually get annoyed when I listen to podcasts when they'll sort of say, who's that actor from that? Oh, I don't know. And then they go, let's look it up on IMDb, and you hear them looking it up on IMDb or going out of the room to consult a thing, and then coming back in, and I'm thinking, come on guys, edit that out. I don't need to listen to you finding out that thing that you're going to come and tell me now. You should know it anyway if I'm listening to you, because why else? I don't need to listen to you having a lovely conversation. But then when I make sort of errors or something goes wrong, I think, oh, well, they might quite like to listen to, the mistakes, because that makes it seem more real, and it's not. And then you go, yeah, and that means it's not polished and focused and professional. And I think one should be all of those things. So I don't know the answer to that, but I will keep that in as a talking point. Not that we will discuss it, I'm sure, but I'm now going to press pause and see if I can kick my internet into some sort of action. We're sorted now, so let's press play on episode, very exciting episode I seem to recall from my youth, episode 3 of The Curse of Fenric. Yes, it's odd because I sort of think of my enjoyment of Doctor Who as a teenager, going, oh, I wasn't very happy with it. I got cross with it all the time because I was a cross teenager. But actually, I was still really excited whenever Doctor Who came on, and I was videoing it. And I used to video the trailers. So I'd video So the 7 episodes I filled with the first 2 stories. I put the trailers for the second 2 stories at the end of that, and at the beginning of the tape that had the second 2 stories of the season, I'd have the trailers from the first, and I'd worked out this system of where I could sort of roll forward and roll back by pressing pause first and then record, so that I wouldn't lose, that I wouldn't have any unnecessary footage from the other programs that were being trailed or whatever. But actually, a couple of times I got too clever with that and actually recorded over the end of the previous week's trailer. So I fiddled a little. Anyway, that was all. That was all part of it. It wasn't just watching the show. It was work. I was quite proud of myself because I worked out when trailers would be on and I would record them and that sort of thing. And as I say, we would have alcohol-fueled parties, which I did when I was this age, and I'd bring my Doctor Who videos with me. But that was partially because we had a slight problem with the video. I always think this is quite fun as well. He's like, right, how's he disabled the radio equipment? He's just twatted them with an axe. And it's funny because Perkins, I kind of expected Perkins would be the sort of character who, when all hell breaks loose at the beginning of episode 4, is on sentry duty and gets sort of killed or whatever. But actually, he just completely disappears. Perkins is also an excellent name for a soldier. There's a Private Perkins, isn't there, in The Invasion? But Perkins it's one of those names that seem to be a lot for sort of slightly scrawny juniors. Or not suggesting that Christian Anholt is slightly scrawny. He's a beautiful boy, and now he's rather muscly because I think he's been acting in That America, and you have to be quite muscly there. And the rain is falling. The rain is falling outside in real life, and the rain is falling on the cast here. Oh, I can see a lovely robin playing outside in the rain. He's having a bath. This rain, of course, gives for a really oppressive atmosphere, and it's obviously really muddy underfoot. And this is great. And nice. Shez and I always do this thing. If somebody's dead in something, we go EPFI, because you still get paid for being in it. And I'm pleased he's credited as well, Peter Szykovsky, because he's there. People go, oh yeah, but if he hasn't got any lines, he's an extra. No, you're not hired as an extra. You're hired as an actor. So even if your character doesn't have any lines, you should still be credited. It's an acting performance. I like this. Don't turn him back away from him or you're dead. Look at that. That's just a gorgeous Doctor Who image of monsters through the smoke. And I love the fact that Sorin knows what they are, and I like the fact that he basically spends the episode going, these are vampires. This is all, and it really adds to the, because any danger from the past brings with it, a sense of our own mortality, because if something has come from the olden days, well, everyone in the olden days is dead, and every object is, worn away, a parody of its former self. It's broken, it's old, it's knackered, it's cobwebby. So, there's something more scary in this kind of adventure of monsters from the past. So even though they're alien hemivores and they're blue, we've got all the advantages of them being vampires. And I like the hints that these guys have a past, and it's elaborated upon in the book. But I actually think it's quite nice that that we don't have a scene saying, and when we were playing rugby and you did that. I think there's enough there to hint at a past between these two without us needing to get sort of bogged down in it. I love this bit. I used to practice. I used to do this speech when I was, in my own world, wondering about. I'm very dramatic. I was I've always been a frustrated. I'm an actor, but often a frustrated one, and it's that sort of. I love that whole speech about the sabotage team sent into German occupied Romania. It's all the phrasing of it and everything gives it real sort of clout and atmosphere. And I loved Captain Soren and Tomek Bork. I thought they were great. And he did a few things at around this time. I have actually emailed him back and forth, but we never actually sorted out an interview. It's odd, a bit like this, and with Fury from the Deep. I mean, some stories, I've collected the entire cast, but but like with Fury, I don't know why I've not been as fastidious as following up the actors that I might have got an interview with or exchanged letters with. I wonder if it's that I actually quite like these stories, which, because I was pretty as obsessed with this as I was with Fury, really, as a kid. I mean, I knew every line, I knew every order of every cast list, and blah, blah, blah. And I used to think about the characters and what extra scenes the characters could have, and blah, blah, blah. And I wonder if I like to just sort of leave it as it is without going behind the scenes on it too much, because I'm sort of consumed by the adventure. I don't need to be break the fourth wall and find out all the facts. Look at that, this is brilliant, and then the shot over there, excellent, beautiful, but wonderfully directed. This is the sort of stuff I thought Doctor Who was crying out for. It was such a thrill to me that it was doing this kind of spooky action adventure, and again, credit to Nicholas Mallet. No, I had a problem with I'd hired a video from Granada Video, and it had sort of little flicks on the screen, and it was about to run out of its. Oh no, we'd bought it. That's it. We'd bought a video machine at this point, and it had little flicks on the screen. So just before it ran out of its guarantee, I got the engineer out, and he put a little thing in it and fiddled with it so that it no longer had flicks on the screen when it was playing my videos. And in fact, I said, look, here's one where it does, and here's one where it doesn't. He said, I don't need to see the ones where it doesn't, but it was a chance for me to show him a number of Doctor Who's, and so then he might go, oh, it's this Doctor Who. I love Doctor Who. Is these old Doctor Who? Oh, yes, Doctor Who is marvellous, and I shall start watching it again and buy all the videos. I was on a constant mission to convert everybody, even a passing Granada Video repairman. But in his repairing, what I hadn't noticed, what he'd done, is that some of the stuff that had been recorded on the video machine already now didn't play properly. It had a weird sort of tracking situation going on. So all my new Doctor Who first generation beautiful off-air recordings actually did a weird tracking thing every 5 seconds. And also some of the older videos, if I started playing them, and if I fast-forwarded through the first sort of 10 seconds, they then didn't play with any sound, but only on that machine. It was really weird. Such were the vagaries of technology in those days. So I'd got to the point where I'd got my own video, and I'd got my own set of all of the Doctor Who episodes on video, but loads of them didn't play properly for various different reasons. I've always been in a house where nothing's quite worked properly, and if we get something brand new, somebody will run it over or crack it or stain it within, minutes. I think I was destined never to live somewhere or have a life that wasn't a bit ramshackle and broken. And that I have to say, there's it was touch and go as to whether you saw Sophie Aldred's skirt rode up in that bit, and I was always slightly surprised that they didn't do a retake. But I think her dignity is just about kept intact. And this is because it is a sort of protracted, monster takes a while to kill the person, but the actor playing the Hemivore does at least do a little, I'm enjoying this with my fingers acting, and I love this that they go to the effort of blowing a couple of holes in the, they can't. And what they do is they do it on the one first and then on the other one second, so because they've only got a certain amount of charges and they know they're going to have two shots. So the first time they shoot, it only happens to the first one, and the second time it happens to the second one. And that's a useful and sensible use of resources. It's a sort of television trick. It's a translation convention in a way. You go, that they've fired more bullets than they've actually got squibs there, but that's okay. At least we're going to the effort of doing the squibs, which normally you don't see in a Doctor Who. That's a wonderful shot, and he's saying the names of the companions, isn't he? Which is rather sweet. Sylvester McCoy is very good at all of that kind of intense, brooding, channeling faith, energy stuff. And then, I'm suddenly Scatty Doctor Who again. That's lovely. Oh, and yeah, word of support for the darker brown jacket, which I think is much better than the beigey one. I think he suits the darker colours more. And this is all lovely Doctor Who stuff. It's a great story for Ace as well, isn't it? And I like that Ace and Captain Sorin have their lovely little sort of moments. Yes, and I remember. Now that was the other thing. It was a parents' evening when this was on, so I made a friend of mine. We had a friend called Derek, who was an older chap who's a sort of handyman and stuff. But he had to come round to my house, and I had to instruct him how to press pause, record, and then press pause again on the BBC logo, so that you got the whole of the title sequence. And reader, he got it wrong. So I couldn't be cross with him, but because I was grateful to him for coming over. But he did actually miss the opening of the title sequence, and a little part of me was broken for that, because it was very important to have the whole of an episode, even if it was the title sequence, which I'd already got. I used to hate it when I got videos done by other people where they'd edited off the opening and closing credits, which people had done with E180s in order to fit 8 episodes on instead of 7. But to me, I would rather have the whole thing. I quite like the fact that Ace is. Would you be allowed to do this, where the Doctor Who's companion is an arsonist? The nitro is, as Russell says about the psychic paper. Who wants to be stopped? Stopped by a door. Well, if there's a wall in the way, it makes your companion quite funky if she blows stuff up. I'm never wild about her sort of wickedy sort of slang dialogue, but I do think it's an attempt to make a companion, away from the cliche. She is really, in my less generous moments, you sort of go, well, you've kind of retconned this, but she actually is really a conduit between old Who, classic Who, and new Who, in that she is this sort of funky, working class, yes, sort of urban companion with attitude. And I'm not quite sure I buy. Oh, she's picked up this vase in order that she thinks, oh, that'll be handy to make some bombs with later, and it happens to be the vase that they've been looking for. But it is a nice joke, and they needed to get it, and it's quite funny. So I forgive it. This is very good. And he's given her the scarf, hasn't he? I liked his scarf. And I really like this character, and it's nice to see. It's nice to see that the Russian soldier is actually an heroic character, and that they haven't, even though they're working contrary to what the British camp and the British base are doing, and even yes, they were our allies in the war, but at this time, the Cold War was very much, in our minds, and I always feared nuclear Armageddon. So it just seemed cool and interesting, and it gave it a lovely vibe. Well, that was why I chose it for my thing in the first episode. That the Russians were all sort of heroic, brave guys. And I love that bit. I've missed it, haven't I? Where they go, oh, we haven't got time, and the soldiers click their weapons, and they're only extras, as if to go, we're going to stay and hold them off. And I love that. I love anything that's a moment of sort of self-sacrificial bravery. There's gazillions of them in Doctor Who and in television and film drama, and it never fails to make me go, whoa, I love that. I love being brave. I think in my ideal death will be if I've been mortally wounded and I'm on a spaceship. I've thought about this a lot. That's brilliant. I love the way I love that scene is really well acted. From Parsons going, they're our allies, and Millington sort of, madly sort of talking about a terrible event that had happened to him many, many years ago that he uses to justify, a terrible act that he's just done. And I love Sorin getting to be cool, and that's actually very good. That's a more budget conscious or strapped or lazier show wouldn't have had that barbed wire going back. We'd have just had it going off to the side, because then you have to have fewer poles and less barbed wire. But actually to have it there, the money's on show. I mean, I guess they were already there, but it would have been a lot to build. But it's just a little bit of camera positioning and set, because they do actually cut the barbed wire as well. So that's all pretty cool. It makes you go, oh well, I'm there, because if they've cut the barbed wire, that they must have erected that for the show. It's just a little touch that I think makes it good. And I love the fact that he comes and confronts Millington, and then does this little code that makes him go, quick, get out of here. I love all of that. This is really exciting. He's being brave. He's confronting Commander Millington. I love that. And then, get out of here. I love all of this. This is really, this is my stuff. It's terribly exciting. And as I say, my ideal death is I've been wounded on a spaceship, and you're all making your escape, and I say, no, leave me. I'll hold them off, and I'll crash the spaceship into the mothership or something like that. That's. I mean, if it can't be on stage playing King Lear at the Royal Shakespeare Company, I'll go for brave self-sacrifice in order to save you lot. But there have to be witnesses. It has to be, no, go save yourself. I'm not doing it anonymously. I always wondered, because her husband is he called Frank William Dudman, and the film cameraman is called William Dudman, Bill Dudman, Frank William Dudman on season 24. And I asked Bill about this, and he said no, he didn't think so, because he didn't really work when he did the film camera work on season 24. It was largely model shots and stuff. But he's a nice guy, Bill. Still in touch. But that, I think, is just a coincidence. Now, Corey Pullman is related to somebody. I'll get back to you on that, because I was looking her up the other day, and she hasn't done much recently. It's a shame, because she's got an excellent voice, a Yorkshire accent spot on. She's got a lovely sort of dusky voice, and she looks like somebody who you think has done a lot. This is nice stuff for this reminds me a bit of the bit with Jamie and the Second Doctor in Evil of the Daleks, when they get cross with each other. Well, when Jamie gets cross with the Doctor and says we're finished, but that's been manipulated by the Second Doctor. The post has just come, so I'm going to have to pause. That wasn't the Wolves of Winter, nor was it the Chains of Fenric shattering. It was the Dog of Chorlton, and it was the jiffy bag coming through the letterbox. So apologies for that, but this is great. As I say, I'm never wildly convinced by Sylvester when he is doing drama. He sometimes looks as if he's in pain when I think he's trying to be serious. That sort of downturn of the mouth and that snarl is an attempt to, I think, convey emotion that doesn't always quite pay off. But he gives it a lot of attack here, and it's a wonderful speech. Credit to Ian Briggs, he writes it very well. And I like the attempt, that this adventure's stakes are so high. The stakes are so high that it's sort of driven a wedge. Oh, I'm continuing a metaphor without meaning to. Between the Doctor and companion. And look how wretched poor old Nicholas Parsons looks here, and he's just sort of waiting for the inevitable. This bit, I'm afraid, I do. For having had that lovely speech from the Doctor and the confrontation between the Doctor and Ace, you now have Ace trying to be sexy as sexy as you can only be allowed to be in Doctor Who. And he's a good actor, Marcus Hutton. He's done loads of stuff, but he's saddled with some right guff here. And what does he say? Faster than the second hand on a watch. And you go, Are you trying to chat her up here, or are you go, or is she going, I'm being all sexy, and you go, yes, can I just nail you down on the timescale and the measurements that you're using here in your attempted seduction of me before I continue with my attempted seduction of you? There's Sophie Aldred, I think, is working very hard, and she's sort of going, the wind is whipping up, but it's not a sort of warm Mediterranean wind. So essentially, she's going, oh, it's a bit gusty round my chuff. But she is doing it very well. She is giving it her all. She is never not committed, Sophie Aldred. But I think, and I think the ambition that they have here to try and sort of suggest some sort of sexual awakening frisson within the companion, especially in contrast to the what happened with Jean and Phyllis and what Miss Hardacre felt about her. Something about undercurrents and bubbling, to use a metaphor for the maturing, the sexual awakening of femaleness and a companion and all of that sort of thing is I applaud the attempts. I think it's not really my kind of thing for Doctor Who. I was desperate for it to be back to the Russians being all cool and heroic, but that's because I'm a boring old bloke. But I think it's worthwhile doing. I unfortunately, it gets the impression that it's been written by somebody who's never met a woman. And they look great here. What was my problem with the vampires? I think Joanne Bell there's giving a really mean smile, and Joanne Kenny looks great. Her colouring is right for the sort of vampiric. And so yeah, I'm really over my dislike of the vampires. I'm still not sure about the fingernails. I think they need to be a different kind of fingernail. They look like they're supposed to give the impression that they tear your neck open, and actually they look like they'll snap. But this, I remember being so shocked at this, because 1, it's Nicholas Parsons, 2, it's only episode 3, and 3, he's really nice, and 4, he's not somebody expected to act, and I think he's absolutely terrified there, and he does that really well. But unfortunately, they still do that sort of stagey thing of going, instead of them grabbing him and tearing his throat out, do that thing where we loom over you and you sort of you cow down. But again, it's a kind of translation convention, because you can't show what they're really doing in Doctor Who. But then that's a brilliant shot of Rainwright dead on the floor. Judson's just been killed. It's only episode 3. It started to rain, and you're going, he's dead, and you're going, oh, what the heck? And Millington's gone absolutely, totally lost it. He's always been slightly sort of not there. His eye on the prize, and of course, this is a clever feint, because you think, well, Judson's dead, so something's Millington's always been a bit strange. Has he been taken over? And then, oh my gosh, he's stood up, and what's going on here? Friends of mine love this cliffhanger, and I remember, I love this story, but I remember. I love this story so much. I was like, oh, it's an ancient villain from the past. And I don't think I ever thought, oh, it's going to be the Master or Omega or something like that. I think I'd got the story enough to know, okay, this Fenric is Fenric, but the idea that they might have met the Doctor before is not we've met loads of aliens who've met the Doctor before that we haven't met. So I don't think I was worried it was falling down a nostalgia rabbit hole. But I think I was so happy in the story as it was that I wasn't that excited about hearing about old lore, especially as it's not really old lore, because they've only just it will only just have happened. In the same way that I'm not wild about sort of grafted on nostalgia. If it's something that invokes something from the past of the show, that gives something a level of excitement. But if it's a new invented past, I'm like, yeah, I mean, okay, but I don't get as carried away. Whereas I know some people absolutely, see Fenric as a sort of A-list villain because it's somebody the Doctor has been fighting all through time. But we've only just been told that now. So that's not to criticise it. That's just to say why perhaps the cliffhanger in that part of the story that I know some people absolutely wild by. I see that cliffhanger sort of cited in loads of best ever cliffhangers, and I just sort of thought, it's okay. I'm not sure this is a development I'm, completely sort of uplifted by, because I'm actually, I'm in the present of the story where everybody seems to be dying. They've just done all sorts of things I didn't expect them to do, and the muddy clay on the floor that's everybody's sliding in is about to hit the fan and splatter those that are still alive, which aren't many. So it's good, and it's well done, and I love the fact that it is something that is a really special cliffhanger for a lot of people. But I think I prefer the second one, which is just a traditional "you're too late, Doctor," and of course also because it's accompanying monsters rising from the sea, which I rather love. So I'm going to be much more in the next episode into the resolution of the army story, the Russians, the vampires, and all of that than I think I am in the Doctor's ancient battle with Fenric. But I know other people, really like that, delving into the Doctor's past and, invoking an enemy that the Doctor's been fighting all through time. That is of less interest to me because it's new lore. Do you know what I mean? That's why. But I might change my mind, because I've changed my mind on a few things as I've been watching this, especially the Cockney vampires, who I didn't like at all. I'm afraid I didn't change my mind on Ace trying to be all sexy with a man made of mahogany. Yeah, he's got the wood, but that's his performance. And as I say, he's a good actor, but I think it's so restricted with what you can do at that time in that kind of program. And it's a brave effort, but I think but I'm afraid it makes me laugh, which is bad of me. But maybe it's because I'm not, sexy stuff is never really my kind of thing, and quite often it just sort of bores me. But there, at least I get some entertainment going, well, bless them, they had a bash. My favourite thing, though, well, I love. I've already chosen Russians, haven't I? Because I love all the stuff with Captain Sorin. I do love Captain Sorin. He's such a good character. And I love his speech about the vampires. I love his bit where he says to his men, "Come in like the wolves of winter." And they go, "Oh, that's the code. We've got to get out of here." I even like the way that when the Doctor rescues him, he sort of rather gamely sort of goes, "Oh," and leaps off where he's been sitting. I think the confrontation between the Doctor and Ace is very good. Although, as I say, I do think there are restrictions there with the performance, which do hamper. It doesn't play to the strongest suit that Sylvester has, which I think is, that sort of melancholy that he does so beautifully, and the sort of scatty natural eccentricity he has. I think when he's trying to be, fierce and dramatic, it's not a comfortable voice/face for him as some of the other stuff that I think sits with him much more naturally as a performer. Nick Mallet, I think, deserves credit for some of those beautiful shots. The monsters on the beach in the mist. The dead Wainwright. Oh, I love that scene where they lock the soldiers in who've been brave. I even love just the soldiers going click click. We're gonna be brave. But Millington's speech about we had to seal it off to save the ship. And in the way he just sort of just delivers it as if to say that's what we're doing, and then buggers off. And that's when it the episode really ramps up, and I think those final few minutes of the episode, you're going, God, this is Doctor. This was this is a different league from the Doctor Who that has fallen short of this sort of drama, and that I imagined old Doctor Who was like all of the time, which of course it wasn't. But it was so exciting being a Doctor, and I'd come back from a parents' evening, and my disappointment that I'd missed and my recording forever. I would never have the opening of the title sequence, and it slightly sullied it for me. But I had it in the past where friends of mine had taped the show for me instead, but their video had been a different video to mine, and then it gave it a different hue, and that jarred as well. I mean, I was so desperate for everything to be, we had first generation, we had off air. It was so important that you had those things, because when we're so used to watching bad quality videos, the chance that you would get to record something off air and that would be your quality copy of the episode was actually very, very important, because I think one enjoyed stories less if they were on really, really grimy quality. And I have to say now, every time there's a remaster, you watch an episode again and you watch it fresh, and it opens up all sorts of things about the episode. I think the bit that sums up the episode most to me is Captain Sorin's speech about the vampires and all that stuff with the vampires on the beach walking through the mist. And the coming over the grave. So the sort of vampire, hemovory, misty vibe, which I'm going to also rather cheat and have Captain Sorin's speech that kind of sums all that stuff up as well. So any of those things, I get a point. I mean, judging by last time, Alan's probably going to choose the sexy scene. I love the bit where Ace leans on a hut and goes, "Ooh," to a man. Let's see what he says.
For the third episode, it's got to be the way they use the Norse mythology and Ultima together. So you've got what was then cutting-edge science with an obvious reference to the breaking of the Enigma Code with Ultima, and you've also got Yggdrasil, the World Tree, and all that ancient Norse mythology, and they're all muddled together, a brilliant science fantasy concept. And of course, the machine is called Ultima, which is a sly little reference, I think, to Ultima Thule, which was what the Romans used to call the area beyond the end of the world. And of course, it's the end of the world is Ragnarok. So there's a little double play on meanings there, which I really rather like.
Oh, now I didn't know that. Every day is a school day. Thanks, Alan. And also, if one was as bright as one thought one might have been when one was younger, Enigma, Ultima, that's another reason it's the Ultima machine, not the ultimate machine. I'm so ashamed. Why am I telling you? That could have died with my teenage self. Please, there be somebody else out there who thought it was called the ultimate machine. The ultimate machine. It's the ultimate machine. That's a wrestler's name, isn't it? And now the ultimate machine. But I like that about the it also being a reference to something else, and that's very. I mean, I hadn't really thought of that, or it occurred to me, but I definitely like what Alan says there about the fact that the Norse mythology and the technology in the brand new for the time technology in the story sort of combine to to resonate with the plot and to move it along and to be so. There's a bit of they're not just there for plot purposes. They kind of there's a tonal thing, there's a thematic thing. It works on a number of different levels, which is all good. It's a really well thought out concept and script, and everyone's worked very hard on this. And when one is a lot of art and creativity, I always really appreciate it when I see that what I'm watching is the result of people, being. Especially on a show that, frankly, they didn't need to, because nobody liked it. The bosses didn't give a monkeys about it. The producer. I'm not criticizing John Nathan Turner here, but he would have been happy with stories that didn't have quite, I think, the level of depth that they're being given by Andrew Cartmel and his bevy of writers, who I think have ambition to try and do something different, and it doesn't always work. And as I say, as the target audience as a kid, the oddbally stuff and some of the tone of some of the stuff didn't work for me, and I got quite cross. But again, I think I'm as much to blame for that as anything else. But seeing as how the show could have been and where it could have gone and the directions that it was going in when Andrew Cartmel took over, I now think I really appreciate the fact that they didn't just sort of rock up to work and go, it's just, have a laugh. They really worked hard, and they had lofty ambitions. They had serious intent, which for an unloved corner of the television landscape, and as a viewer, I really appreciate the fact that everyone is digging in and doing as well as they can, with circumstances and equipment and resources that make that a lot harder. So, and that's what makes for a great Doctor Who story, is that everybody comes together and produces something that's greater than the sum of its parts could ever dream of being. But that also has cool hero moments and monsters and aborted attempts at sexiness. It's got it all. Well done, Doctor Wu. So let's play the contest again. I was going to do a lead into next week, but actually I'm going to play the contest first with Mr. Andrew Cartmel, who is going to tell us what his thoughts are on episode 3, including his favourite thing. Will it be Alan's, the combination of Norse mythology and new technology, or the sort of rather nebulous Sorin speech, vampires, misty fang that's going on? Let's go and see Andrew in the future. Oh, episode 3 was a hard one. Episode 3 was a really hard one. I sort of cheated. I loved Captain Sorin's speech about 6 months ago. There was a mission in German occupied Romania and a man started talking about vampires, and I love all the stuff of the hemivores on the beach, and so I suppose it kind of covers the vampire side of things, but I loved all of those visuals and the fact that he alludes to something. There's something, isn't there, about legend and the past that gives you're telling a science fiction story, but you're using the tropes of horror. And horror is, of course, scarier than science fiction because something ancient and fusty somehow makes us more scared than something shiny and futuristic.
Primal and mythic, yeah. That's Briggs all over too. He's a very knowledgeable guy. He's very scholarly, and so he's drawing on deep sources, deep roots.
Yeah, I'm just trying to think what Alan chose.
Oh, he's not here. It doesn't matter what he thought.
I only did it minutes ago. Anyway, oh, no, I'll tell you what it was. He likes the synthesis of the brand new technology of the Ultima machine and the Norse mythology, and the idea that the story is telling of a sort of clash and of those two things.
And the way that those things interlock, overlap, and interpenetrate, which again is the sheer genius of Ian Briggs.
Well, there was me forgetting something that had happened literally minutes before. But there we go. Hopefully this podcast will stay with you longer than anything manages to cling to my addled brain, which seems to be dropping things very, very quickly these days. Unlike a barnacle on a hemovore's face, nothing seems to stick in the Hadoke noggin anymore. But I hope what sticks with you is a sense of enjoyment of this Doctor Who story and some insights from its script editor, Andrew Cartmel, and there'll be more of this celebration of the Gothic and the terrifying in the next instalment of Happy Times and Places, which sees the chains of Fenric shatter for the very last time. Well, except for then the special edition and the special extended edition and all that. Thank you very much for listening to Happy Times and Places, which is presented by me, Toby Hadoke, and my special guest this time around is Alan Lear. I'm grateful to Alan and to the script editor of The Curse of Fenric, Andrew Cartmel, for giving his time as well. I'm also grateful, there's a lot of gratitude when you're a lone podcaster, to the patrons who make these possible, and they include Ruben Herfindahl, Stephen Moffat, Peter Burns, James Curray-Smith, Peter Harness, Ronald Hayden, Rob Leonard, Christopher Meredith, Gavin McLean, Richard Straw, Neil Tate, Nick Tedston, David Trainier, Tim Arding, Nigel Bromley, Jenny at Bluebox 99, Paul Cook, Richard Chalk, Grant Davidson, John Deere, Chris Dunford-Kelk, Paul Dunn, Jason Gorman, Siobhan Galichon, Chris Hyam, Ian Key, Joe Llewellyn, Philip Marsh, Nathan Martin, Roland Moore, Kevin Murdoch, Graham Knott, Adam Parker, Barry Platt, Risto Matti Cirillo, and Frank Shales. The music is by Dave Gates, the artwork Dylan Patterson. Please, Mum, can I get my name read out on Toby Hadoke's Time Travels during the closing credits? Well, you can, son, but only if you become a patron at patreon.com/Toby Hadoke. It won't cost you much of your pocket money either. £3 a month is the entry tier, and you get everything pretty much on that. Well, all of the content, all the noise, basically, all the pictures, all the words and pictures are available from £3 a month. You can get 10% off that, or indeed any tier, if you sign up for a year in one go. There are also advanced releases, bonus releases. You get all the podcasts well ahead. Happy Times of Places about 6 months ahead so far. The other two not so, because they're taking a bit longer, especially as I write my Quatermass book and do various other things. Sorry about that. I'm a lone wolf operating in the cyber jungle. Never mind what I'm doing. Yeah, I'm slow, and I'd like to do a good job, so I don't rush the Happy Times and Places. No, I rush the Happy Times and Places. I'm rushing it now. The too much information. I'm rushing it so much, I'm not going to edit that bit out, even though I went up Segway Alley and there was a couple of visits to Beepville there as well. I don't know if they'll pick those up. Anyway, this is the post-credits bit. This isn't the money shot. I think I started a sentence that I didn't finish a while ago. Anyway, the point, basically, I'm apologising for too much information in Indefinable Magic being a bit slow right now. I know they're podcasts that people have enjoyed, but I like to do them properly. But you do get those sooner if you are a patron. You still get them really slowly, but you don't get them as slowly as you get them if you're not a patron. And Happy Times and Places, which are these ones in all their unedited, segued, wandering around the houses. A straight line is the most direct route, but it is by far the least interesting. Glory. So anyway, this is worth £3 a month, isn't it? This bit now between closing credits and end sting. Patreon.com/Toby Hadoke, if only to raise enough money to send me to Dignitas, which is where I think I should be off. But if you can't or don't want to do a monthly commitment, that's totally understandable. Ko-fi.com/Toby Hadoke is another way of supporting independent artists and hoping to keep their work advert free. You just buy me a virtual coffee every now and again if you've particularly liked a podcast or think I sound in need of an invigorating shot of cyberspace caffeine. But what costs you nothing, and I totally get that times are tough, and podcasts are free at the point of contact, and rightly so, because because it's the way that we do things now, and it's the way that we reach an audience, and I'm happy to do that. I'm so grateful to anybody choosing these to listen to over and above all the other treats out there and in the internet. So thank you for listening. And if you want to do something that doesn't involve the parting you with any of your hard-earned cash, which I think is fair enough, and especially as electricity bills and pesto. I bought some pesto today. I remember when that was £1.65, £3.40. Anyway, let's not get into. I know it's a very middle class problem. What are you measuring the poverty of for the 21st century post-COVID austerity grip by, Toby? Pesto. Yeah, pesto. Oh, I'll check the hummus and the Guardian prices while I'm there as well, just to show what an objectionable git I am. Anyway, if that hasn't just put you off, yeah, £3 a month, that'll nearly keep me in pesto. Look, what costs you nothing, which is, as I say, totally understandable in this day and age where some more important things than pesto. Look, I don't buy a lot of pesto. I was just buying pesto today. It just occurred to me. I buy bread and things as well, but today I was buying pesto. And what costs you? Oh, God almighty. I'm gonna die of starvation. That pesto will never even be opened if I carry on these sentences as long as this. Where was I? Right. I was meandering off topic again. What costs you nothing is to give these a 5-star review. I mean, they deserve it for persistence, if nothing else. A 5-star review and a few lines of very positive feedback really help to enable these to stand out amongst the crowd, and that means there'll be more listeners, and more listeners justify the time I spend on this, and more listeners might lure some more patrons, but that doesn't really matter. It's just nice to have people listening to the results of the endeavours that put these together. So spread the word. I'm very, very grateful if you do, and I'm also very sorry about that stream of consciousness load of old nonsense that you were just subjected to, whilst I was also asking for, give me money for that, because it's really worth it. But anyway, look, there it is. I was better than getting hit by a spade, innit? And please do all the socials. At Hadoke Podcasts is this podcast's Twitter feed. It's not called Twitter anymore, is it? It's an X-Twitter. So, yeah, go to I'm just going to call it Twitter. I mean, I'm still pretty much of the Opal Fruits persuasion, you know what I mean? And definitely Marathon. I'm not calling anything Snickers. A plural-sounding word for a singular piece of confection. No, thanks very much. Especially not one that sounds like a slang word for underpants. No, this is not a Snickers household, and I love a Marathon. What was I saying? Yes, so at Hadoke Podcasts. I'm on Twitter at Toby Hadoke. I'm also on Instagram at Toby.Hadoke. I'm trying to build that. I've learned how to edit videos and all sorts of things. So, and put news there from my comedy club, Excess Malarkey, which I'd love you to come and see in Manchester on a Tuesday night. And I've started doing monthly new material nights as well. So, so follow me there for all the comedy business. I know a lot of you aren't here for that. You're just here for the Doctor Who stuff. But I'm a comedian as well, you know. Oh, doesn't show and all that, but I am. So if you would like to follow my comic endeavours, Excess Malarkey Comedy Club, which I'm not going to name the venue, because we seem to, after 26 years, you'd think I'd get some forward momentum, but we're a bit nomadic as I record this, but it will always be called Excess Malarkey, and I will keep going until I drop, and that's in Manchester every Tuesday and the last Sunday of every month. And yes, my socials, I have a Facebook page, not my personal one, simply because I've got too many, in inverted commas, friends on that, so I'm going to thin that out and just make that for personal stuff. But all my work stuff will be on I think it's a fan page, but I don't like using that phrase because it implies that I might have fans, as opposed to people who are just quite interested in what some of the stuff that I do every now and again. So I have a page for that. It's my comedian page rather than my sort of personal profile. So if you could like that or follow that, that would be nice. That's all the socials, and that's probably all the words that are necessary for this particular edition. But wait, there's more, because there has to be, because there's always a post-credits bit. I don't know why. It's a little tradition I started doing that's now got out of hand. It used to be just a couple of sentences. Now it's a novel. The commentary for Curse of Fenric, actually on the DVD, it's one of the early ones, isn't it? Nicholas Parsons spent the whole thing just going, this doesn't make any sense, but the Doctor Who fans, they just sort of make it up. And Sophie and Sylvester sort of, they're going, no, I think it's all there for a reason. It's not just a random sequence of things that somebody's just sort of thrown together in the hope that we're out there sort of piecing it together. It does make sense, but it just goes to show, isn't it, that you don't have to be sort of really consumed by the text, as it were, in order to give a brilliant and convincing performance that gives the whole stuff a basis in reality. He was just all like, oh, this is all rather marvelous, isn't it? But he's got the capabilities of doing it and making it work. But it was one, because it was quite an early one. It was one where I was kind of throwing things at the screen, just verbal barrages at the screen, going, no, it makes perfect sense, it's fine. And I suspect if I'd been the script editor, I'd have been going, it makes all perfect sense. I wish I was on this commentary. Maybe that's why Andrew said a couple of episodes ago he'd have dropped the Parsons bit. Maybe it was for DVD commentary malfeasance. Ha ha ha. Well, I'm now glad we get to. And Parsons is great. Bless him. Lived to be a great age. And he very kindly invited me onto his show at the Edinburgh Fringe. He came to see my show called Now I Know My BBC, which is the one that nobody talks about because it doesn't mention Doctor Who, so loads of people who come to see my Doctor Who show didn't bother to come and see it. I had a real downer on that show for a while, actually, but a few people have come out of the woodwork and said, no, it was really good. But I suppose because it was sandwiched between the two Doctor Who ones, which I remember being much easier Edinburgh Fringes because I had a sort of guaranteed audience, and whereas the BBC one, it just seemed. I don't know if I quite got the show right, but there are people who've seen all of my stuff who quite like that show, but I don't really remember that much about it anymore. But Parsons came to see it, and then had me on his show, which was very, very nice. So I've had the pleasure of being in the orbit of Nicholas Parsons, but who's no longer with us, and nor is the Reverend Wainwright, because he gets killed at the end of episode 3. What a shocker, eh? Great. But, oh gosh, I've actually finished. I've recorded all 4 episodes of this, and I'm just remembering how much fun I had watching episode 3, and, in fact, how much fun I had watching episode 3 when it first went out, when it seemed that everything was hitting the fan, and, doom and gloom, and, monsters from the sea, and everyone getting killed, and lots of mud and rain, and all hell breaking loose. What fun. Oh, I do like Doctor Who.